once you were a man, a chemist named Ted Sallis, until a top-secret experiment went away and you changed into the Man-Thing. You are Johnny Blaze, once a spawn of Satan, and now you are free of him, but you still possess Satan's spawn natural superhuman powers, the Ghost Rider. The full moon paints eerie shadows across your chalk-white flesh. Michael Morbius, once you were a renowned biochemist, dying of an unknown blood disease and searching for a cure. You found it. You are the living vampire. The same moon highlights your fur and furthering fangs. You, who man calls Jack Russell, find yourself burying the golden orb above you. You are the werewolf by night. Hello everyone, and welcome back to Comic Beyond Dark Tales. In this episode, we're going to be covering the Legion of Monsters, teaming up Ghost Rider, Man-Thing, Morbius, and Werewolf by Night. So in this story, it takes place in Los Angeles, and in the heart of Los Angeles, this mountain just erupts from out of the ground, out of nowhere. And so we catch up with our characters first. We get introduced to Ghost Rider. He says in the book, it's funny, he's on his way to go see a movie as Johnny Blaze when all this happens. And so he decides to go investigate it, and so he morphs into his Ghost Rider form. And then picking up from our last issue, Michael Morbius and Werewolf, they're getting into a tussle. They're getting into a fight when this happens. And so they're aware of it. And then we cut to a swamp, which is, I'm assuming, close to LA. But this guy, he's fishing, and he catches a fish. But then Man-Thing comes up out of the water, and he's not even taken by Man-Thing. He's worried about protecting his fish he just caught, because he, as Man-Thing's passing along, he tells Man-Thing, he's like, no, I caught this, and nobody's going to take it from me. So he was very proud of his fish. So they all team up reluctantly, really, because, so what it is, this character, called, Starseed appears, and he's like in golden form. He's just all in gold, and he's riding a golden horse. And the four of them are there, and he proceeds to tell them like why this mountain is here and who he is. And so, it being monsters, and then now this is happening, it really goes from being like 1930s like vampire werewolf storytelling to 1950s sci-fi storytelling, which I really enjoyed. So back in this guy's day, like hundreds of years ago, before the continents separated, these aliens, like a flying saucer comes down, and like these one-eyed aliens come, and they literally take this mountain, and when they take it, they rip it from the earth and they take it with them. They don't realize there's still people in there. Like he explains, like there was people that survived because they were living in the catacombs and the caves of the mountain. And he explains that he's brought his people back, his mountain back, because he was able to defeat these aliens. And so now he's back. But what he doesn't realize is he's not back in his time. He's hundreds of years removed. And that's what Ghost Rider tries to tell him. He's like, yeah, you're back, but this isn't your time. This isn't where you belong. You're in the heart of Los Angeles right now. And so this is where the story gets kind of funny, because poor Ghost Rider, he's trying to hold this situation together, because you got Morbius, who's trying to fight his bloodlust and attacking the guy. And so you got Werewolf with his like wolf urges, I guess, to want to like attack. So they're trying to fight this guy. And so Ghost Rider is trying to fight them off to try to stop them from hurting this guy, because so far he hasn't done nothing wrong. So he's fighting Morbius, and he's like, "Oh my God, you're a vampire!" And then he's like, "I got a vampire I'm dealing with. I got a werewolf." And so they're attacking this guy. Ghost Rider's trying to stop him. And then he backs up, and Man-Thing puts his hand on Ghost Rider's shoulder, and he's like, "Oh my goodness, it smells like a swamp." He turns around, and it's Man-Thing. And he's like, "Oh man, now I got werewolves and vampires. Now I'm like fighting a whole swamp." And so he's like overwhelmed because he doesn't know really what to do. Johnny's like really confused about the situation. And so they're fighting, and in the midst of the fight, Morbius ends up biting this guy. And so the tussle stops. Like, Ghost Rider's finally able to get him to stop fighting this guy, and he falls to his knees, and he's dying. And as he's dying, he shows them, like, before he was misunderstood or mistaken, and they started fighting him. Like, he had the power to cure all of them of their curses. Like, he turns Man-Thing back into himself. He turns Morbius back into himself, and the werewolf and the Ghost Rider. And he shows them. He's like, if y'all would have, like, let me, like, be me, I would have been able to lead y'all and, like, take care of y'all and, like, cure you. And, he's dying, and Ghost Rider's like, is there anything I can do? And he's like, unfortunately, no. He's like, this is it for me. And so he dies, and all of them end up going back into their cursed forms. And so Morbius, he looks down at his hands, and they turn back into that chalk white skin that he has. He's like, my hands, they're back. He's like, I'm cursed again, and I helped kill the only person that would have been able to cure me. And Ghost Rider, just kind of annoyed at him, kind of looks at him. He's like, yeah, bummer. And or big deal. And so he's annoyed by all of them. And so they all part ways and go their separate ways. And here's Ghost Rider. He's like, apparently his motorcycle's out of gas, because on the very last panel he's like, man, I hope I don't have to deal with those guys again. And he's like pushing his bike. He's like, man, I'm probably miles away from a gas station. So apparently the Hell Cycle can run out of gas. And so that's where the book ends. And I like that it was like a monster alien 1950s mashup style of like storytelling. And as tragic as the story is, because it doesn't end. I guess after reading these monster comics, I think I'm starting to see a tone that they were putting into them back in the day. Like, nobody gets a happy ending. Like, there's never. Yeah, they deal with a situation and they take care of it by the end of the story, but it doesn't end well for anybody. Like, there's no accomplishment for these poor, uh, uncurable creatures. Um, and so, like, yeah, there was a lot of humor in this, which I enjoyed. A lot of it actually spawning from Ghost Rider. But yeah, there was not a happy ending, and that's like I think this is the way it is on these stories, which is fine with me. I'm actually a fan of the hero not winning all the time. I like when people just, they do a good deed, they move on, but it's not necessarily to help, prolong, or not prolong, but move their story forward. Um, so I enjoyed it. I've been waiting to read this because I wanted to review it. In the midst of doing like this October Halloween, like kind of like horror books. But it was fun seeing these characters team up. I know over the years they've kind of crossed paths, and here recently in the last couple of years they've kind of teamed them up, and they've become the Legion of Monsters. And like, I think Elsa Bloodstone sometimes leads the pack and stuff like that. So it was a fun read, very entertaining, tragic. It has all the elements you need. I don't have the single issue. I have it in my trade. That's how I read it. But I hope you enjoyed it. And if you tune in tomorrow, you will see Dracula versus Spider-Man.